I think Spurs have done well to get Solanke for 60. They've overpaid for him, in my opinion, but that just shows you where the market is with centre forward.
Yeah, it shows you where we're at.
Yeah. But I think possibly, I know we're not going to get him, but someone like a Kudos, someone who
he would be amazing for us.
He's basically a forward type player who can play right across the front line, and basically he's someone who I think basically would improve us and can score goals. So so someone like that. I know we've been linked to various forwards. I've been impressed by one or two we've been linked with, to be fair. So
been linked with Sane and Kingsley Coleman as well.
Well, they're wingers, aren't they? So that just shows you the fact that tells me that we're struggling to get that forward, and I think we're being linked with wingers. There's more in the winger market of quality than there is in the forward market for quality. So basically that's basically I think where I am with it. So I do think that I agree with what Mikel's thinking. I do like the Merino signing. In fact, the reason why I like it is because I know he played for Newcastle a few years ago, and I must admit he didn't exactly stand out for me then when he played.
Yeah, he struggled there. Yeah, I don't think he stood out for anyone.
No, but he's older now and he's improved. He's part of that Spanish team that sort of like went on to win the Euros. And I think the thing I like about it is that he could replicate, I think, with Odegaard what he had at Sociedad, because they had quite a good understanding. And I think football's all about relationships and combinations, and if you've got players who understand each other the way they play, that would be a bonus, and that would really help the team. So I think, and also he's good in the air. He can win duels. I think he's smart. He's
everything Arteta looks for in theory.
Yeah, he is. He's everything Arteta likes in a footballer. And the funny thing is, you talked about a forward. We're not going to get him either. But going back to that Sociedad connection, and I'm saying, I'm not saying Arsenal need to.
He'd be a dream.
Isaac, that would be a dream for me if we got Isaac, because he
give him the
played
14 shirt, man.
Yeah, he played with. Yeah, it's a great call, that 14 shirt. Yeah, so he played with Odegaard in Spain as well. So, so in terms of that forwards, if Newcastle are never going to sell one of their top three players, they're not going to sell those three players who. I think Eddie Howe's already said he's going to sell Bruno Guimaraes, Gordon, or Isaac, and they're the three sort of main players in that squad. So, but Isaac would be just what I'd want at centre forward for me. The way he sort of drifts out the left, the way he's able, he's a great finisher.
Aura about him as well.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. So that would be someone. So if we could get a forward, someone like that. But who is there out there who's got that sort of quality? That's the problem. That's why you're talking about Leroy Sané and Kingsley Coman, because obviously Bayern Munich now inflated with wide players, but at the same time there are more quality wide players available to be sort of like linked with players than linked with clubs than there are top quality forwards, in my opinion. So I do think Arsenal needs someone who's going to take the workload off Saka, someone who could maybe play multiple positions. Be interesting to see what he sees the role of Gabriel Jesus this year, because I think Arsenal are better with Havertz at centre forward. As you said, I don't think midfield is his strongest role, but Arteta has already said pre-season he liked the way that the Trossard, Havertz, and Jesus trio sort of like combined, didn't he? With sort of one coming short, one coming inside, and one going out wide. They seem to sort of like understand positioning.
You said it's about relationships.
Yeah, the relationship that we talked about, and he talked about their relationship. So it could well be, in certain games he plays Jesus. He doesn't see Havertz as a midfielder. He sees him as a second striker playing in midfield.
As he should.
That's the way, and that's the way where football is now, isn't it? We talk about formations, we talk about positions, but Arteta just sees them as players who can play multiple positions, and that's pretty much how he likes his teams to be. Players who are comfortable in. If you look about the three zones of the pitch, you're tactically clued up like I am. So basically, he likes players who can play in zone 1 and zone 2. Comfortable in each zone. They can play out, they can play through the midfield. A bit like the way when you think about Martin Odegaard, he's a prime example of somebody who Arteta
he's the nucleus of our team, man.
He is. He's basically, he can play literally in all three phases of the pitch. He can sort of like play in build up. In the first third, he can go into the middle third. He can play in the box midfield. He can drift out right. He can play as a 10. He can play as an 8. He literally can play all over the pitch.
Such a player.
Yeah, and I think this is what Arteta wants. He wants players who basically, we're saying we don't want to see Havertz in midfield, but he sees Havertz as somebody who can play in midfield and play up top. He sees him as a multifunctional footballer who does everything that he asked him to do. And I think there's an argument, over this year, since the turn of the year, Havertz has been probably one of Arsenal's best players, certainly since January.
Definitely. Him and Trossard given between them in the second half of last season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I do think it ultimately boils down to in games, you need to rest players, you need to rotate, you do need to have quality. So when players come off, Saka hasn't got to play 75, 80 minutes, hasn't got to play every game. Someone can come on and just, it's going to be very hard to be as good as Saka, who's, in my opinion, the best right winger in the world. But it's going to be very hard to replicate what he does. But somebody who's a quality, who can come in and do a really top job at their level, what they're good at, and be an asset in that position. That's what he wants. And, it's a bit like what Pep had when he had those wingers, when he had Riyad Mahrez and he players like that. He just literally rotated.
And the rest
Bernardo, he had Sane, and
more options than he could probably count on his fingers out wide at one point.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I think he wants. So and I think if we could get there, and if we could get that, I think that, as I say, I think we've got Mikel's coaching skills, and I think the team are really hungry. And the other thing is that every year Pep's got to keep motivating that City team to go again. I know he does it year on year, but sooner or later, those Arsenal players, how much do they bloody want it? Do they want it as much as we want it? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, because they're the ones that obviously that's what's always annoyed me about football fans when they say footballers. I've been guilty of it where they say footballers don't care. I genuinely don't believe that. This is their life. This is their job. They're professional athletes. They're some of the most self-reflecting individuals on the planet. They're literally training for something every day of the week. And I agree with a point you made about fluid systems and contributing in all phases. That's what Mikel Arteta wants. If you're a striker, you need to be able to drop in midfield and at times defensively. Obviously, our defenders have to be good on the ball. I always say our first defender at the moment is Kai Havertz. Our first attacker is David Raya. So it's almost like three sub teams that interlap, which is interesting. And the upfront stuff concerns me because it's a bit like the question it says here: can we challenge without a world-class striker? If it is, if to look at that question and challenge, I believe yes. To get over the line, I'm not sure. But it's like you said, if you look at the striker market, there isn't really one thing. And one thing I'll give Edu and Mikel Arteta credit for is that whether I like it or not, they're prepared to sit and do nothing rather than just signing players, which we've seen in previous years, which makes me look at the Eddie and Nketiah kind of breakdown in the Marseille deal. I don't know how you feel, because it did look like we was going to get 30 million. Maybe the inner details and intricacies wasn't what we wanted. And then I look at it. Did they say, Eddie, you know what, you can stay. Whether we believe in you or not, you've shown you can do a job. We probably expect Gabriel Jesus to get injured. And while Kai Havertz is probably going to play the majority of the season, there's going to be times he's going to need to be rested. And that's kind of what scares me, because goals ultimately win games. We did get 91, but when you break down how many came from set pieces, how many came in singular games, the certain individuals that got double figures in Trossard, who I don't know if you're in Mikel Arteta's starting 11 plans, obviously Kai Havertz, who did it at the second half of the season, and Saka, it kind of fills me with a tiny bit of fear. I agree with what you said about Merino in a sense of, I think he will have a great understanding. I don't think he's a sexy signing, a shiny new toy, a blockbuster in the ilk of Declan Rice, so people won't really take to him. But I think as time goes on, it'll be all right. And I'm happy we look to be signing him, because Declan Rice probably moves over to the right hand side, and he's got a consistent partner. I think Declan Rice was great for us and had, even on the goal scoring front. But one thing I felt sorry for him is he more or less 9 times out of 10, unless it was Jorginho, he had a lot of different partners, as well as learning how to play in that left 8. As you said earlier as well, I don't think fans really take heed that football is about improving relationships, improving individually and collectively, especially where English fans, in my opinion, are concerned, where the solutions are just spending money. And I agree with you in the sense of, if we can't get a striker, can we get a winger? And it's a tricky one, because I think we need a striker that can get goals, but the game's kind of left that. You can't just be a striker that gets goals. You need to contribute in all phases. If being a clinical striker was the maximum requirement for Mikel Arteta, then we probably don't see Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, and anyone who's been there leading the line for us. So it's a bit of a tricky one, really and truly. If we could only sign an inside forward or a striker, which one would you go for? Or a versatile attacker and a striker, better way of putting it.
I think the one, if we could sign a striker, my old one Isaac, but we're not going to get Isaac. He would be my first choice.
Same.
But it's not going to happen. So if I would, but the player I'd love is Kudus, as I said earlier. He'd be the player But you know, West Ham are not going to sell him. So, but he would be amazing. He's an amazing player. He's one of these players who I've watched. He just runs through teams, and I just think sometimes you need a player like that, someone who's got that ability who could just run through a team. You know, he's turn it on, get on a roll, and he literally can drive through a team through the centre of the pitch, as well as sort of what he does. And he's a great finisher. He works hard off the ball as well. I think he's a great player. So you know, if we had Kudus and Isaac,
we'd be laughing, man. Then I'd be saying we're going to win the league, man, provided everyone stays fit. Imagine that on top of having the existing options, we'd really be laughing. What'd you make of Osimhen? Because I see a couple of people commenting him and Ivan Toney in the chat. Would you take either one?
I think Tony's too old. He's not the type of profile that Arteta wants. I mean, I did like Ivan Toney. I was at the game a couple of years ago at the Emirates when they drew 1-1 when they scored that goal.
Yeah,
I remember that. He actually bullied Saliba that day, and you don't see that very often. And he's a top player, but I just think he's age now is against him. Osimhen, I don't know. You know, he's done it in Italy. Where do you cut it in the Prem? I mean, he's a good player. Would I take him? I just wonder if if he's a Mikel player. You know, to do what Mikel wants. You know, off the ball, and that's the problem with some of these players. You know, Mikel's looking for a certain type of forward who fits how he wants to play, and I think you are right. Sometimes it's the sexy sign. You know, you want a sexy signing, but sometimes some of the unsexy signings are just as important to the balance and the success of the team.
Look at our football club with Odegaard, Ramsdale, and Benjamin White at the point of signing for the football club.
Yeah. So, in answer that question that popped up, can we win the league without a number 9? Well, we came very close to winning it last year without a number 9. We can compete for the league without a number 9, definitely, and we'll go close without one. I think if we had a top quality number 9, I think we would win the league. So
look at the December period. You're right, man.
So but the trouble is, who is that top quality number 9, and how can we get him?
The age-old dilemma. Yep,
it is. It's the ultimate dilemma. I just sort of like think that, you know, Arteta and Edu know what they're doing. They know the type of player that we need. They've obviously, I think there's someone there they're going to surprise us with. So
I hope so.
Don't sort of like what do you call this? Bench this